Hello, my name is Natasha Thomas. I'm very sorry I can't be there today. I am in the middle of pursuing a PhD in expressive arts therapy, so I'm spending 3 weeks in Boston right now for a residency. I've been working with the ELO program for the last 5 years now. This is year 5. And when it first started, we were just looking for a way to engage these students in the performing arts. They're already here for the extended school year, and we just thought, how could we augment that? And so the first year that I was with the students, I actually was just leading a couple of drum circles. I'm a music therapist by trade, so that's the background that I came into this with, was just to lead some music-based activities and see where we went. And we ended up finding these kids have a great ear for rhythm. It's a great way for them to try and communicate with each other without having to stress themselves out so much on trying to interpret a language that's being said to them and then translate inside their heads and speak back out. We could find ways to interact musically without having to stress them out that way. So we started there. That was a nice building block, and from there we grew into some songwriting activities. We've done some playwriting as well, so they've been able to write their own scripts for little skits and types of things to put together their own productions. And then this past year we just started adding a visual art component as well. So they've been doing some building as well as some clay, molding and making little dioramas and all sorts of stuff to sort of help continue that original mission to just enhance their existing education through the arts. So some basic do's and don'ts for working with ELL students. Definitely do your homework. Do a little bit of digging for information on where those students come from and the types of environments they might be coming from, but don't make assumptions. Whatever information you find on paper or on the internet may not be true of that student's lived experience, so do ask questions. Ask them a little bit about where they come from, and you can find time to do that in the most mundane little things. You know, I mentioned that some of our students were doing some clay work and building dioramas, and the theme of the dioramas we were making was home. And so I was asking them as I was seeing them drape, you know, some of our African students draping these colorful fabrics from the walls, and they were telling me that's what they do instead of painting their houses. They drape these beautiful fabrics. And that's a little window into their lives. So do your homework, don't make assumptions, do ask questions, find time. Set aside time to talk to them and learn more about who they are. And don't hold back. You can hold them to a high standard. You can ask of them the same things that you expect of your other students. They might need a little bit more time to do that, and so be patient, do be patient with them, but you can hold them to a high standard. You can ask them to meet you in the middle, essentially, so that you can find the most possibility for success within their lives and the lives of the ensemble that you're working to create. So there's lots of potential with ELL students, and I would love to see this program continue to grow and see more ELL students continue to integrate into the Grand Forks public school system. For me personally, I'm going to be moving at the end of the summer down to New Orleans, which is going to be a totally different shift for me, different populations of people to work with. I'll be working with at-risk youth in the lower 9th Ward where Katrina hit the hardest. You know, so the populations that I work with as a music therapist are going to shift. I'm going to continue to try and find ELL populations to work with because I think that there's so much growth there, so much potential for growth with those kids. So I hope to see the Grand Forks ELL program and Ell Spa specifically continue to grow, and I hope to see more ELL students across the country being able to integrate more safely and more happily into their public school systems, because I think that makes the world go round. The more minds that you can put on a project, the more diversity of perspectives and opinion, I think there are incredible possibilities that can be found there. So we've had students from Mexico, Vietnam, China. We see students come here from all over the world and from all walks of life. Some of them have had previous English experience. Some of them are refugees and they came here very quickly with very little time to acclimate. I've known students that we start on day 1 and I ask them, how long have you been here? And the answer is like a couple days or 2 weeks, and they have not been here that long, and we're throwing them into this completely foreign environment. So some of the things we've learned in the years that we've done this is to really ease in. We always start with drumming every year. Because it's a nice way to, as I sort of mentioned earlier, not stress them out, to encourage them to engage with each other without the pressure of having to use spoken language. And so we build a lot of nonverbal communication that way. And so that's something that we've definitely learned, is that that's a strength for us to start with drumming, to start with music making. We've also learned over the years that we've wanted to try and build to the point where they're doing a full production of their own, and that's definitely possible, but we have to be really careful about how we strategize it. There are students that are incredibly bright and incredibly capable of writing their own production, but pacing really matters. Grouping them up really matters because they're just like us, they have their preconceived notions about how the world works and how people from different countries work, and so there are some barriers there that we have to sort of knock down first. And so it's increasingly important to spend that extra time at the beginning drumming, not just for them to get musically engaged and to build those relationships, but also just to get comfortable with each other. To get to that point too. So there's some groundwork that we've been learning over the years that needs to be laid before we can build to that full production point, but we are seeing students that develop an interest in production to the point that maybe they'll join the technical crew of a production at Red River High School, or they'll want to contribute in some other way to the arts in their school environment. And that's great because that's part of those are the beginning seeds of getting them to integrate with the rest of the community at large, which is really important. So in terms of how to engage these students into regular ed, music, other performing arts, I think it starts with the relationships. Like I mentioned before, we do a lot of relationship building in the early weeks of their time with me, and with the spa staff, we're working on trying to get them to connect to each other. When you build that foundation and then you start to branch out a little bit, our students perform in the large-scale spa share day, so they get to see what all the other students are doing and they get to share what they're doing. When you give students an opportunity to do that, to take pride in something that they have created and show it to their peers, that's the foundation for relationship building with those peers. And as those relationships build, you can start to encourage students to bring some of that talent into the existing ensembles at the school. So there are students now that are involved in the Red River High School choirs, and that's great. They require some of them a little bit of extra attention because they haven't come with that music reading background that our students all grow up here having in the US, and so they take a little bit of extra time. It takes a little bit of patience and a little bit of preliminary work on the educator's part to learn a little bit about the cultures they come from. But when you come to them wanting to learn, when you come to them showing them that you've already done a little bit of homework to learn about them and the things that matter to them, and when you show excitement for the things that they're already capable of doing, that's just a tremendous foundation to being able to build relationships with their peers and ultimately integrate into the school system more strongly. So it's been my honor to work with this program, and I look forward to continuing to watch and engage as much as I can.